How to develop good practices document package from different types of references. How do we document and package different formats of good practices information? How do we develop a document package on good practices from different types of references? A good practice document focuses on the successful experience or the right actions taken that led to the achievement of a goal. The FAO website in capacity development identifies a 5-step process to capture and share a good practice. First, you identify the practice and frame the process. Next, you need to gather and organize information. And then you need to analyze the good practice results. After that, you need to document and prepare to communicate. And finally, you need to share with others to generate change. Using this information from FAO and based on the references that are already added in the Good Practices database, I've come up with a template that we can use to collect information from different sources and focus our data on good practices in biodiversity conservation. This template will document and package important details from any type of biodiversity reference into a good practice document. It's called Good Practices Information Capture Template. You can access and download the template on this training page, and also there's a link added on the training module. Now let's take a look. Here's the Good Practices Information Capture template. This is the template worksheet where you can add your own data as you are guided by the information that you need to capture. The difference with the worksheet is that you are given space to add your answers. It will be useful as you develop your own good practices document later. Let me go through each element of the template. The template is divided into two parts. First, you need to add information about the reference you're using. Second is about the good practices itself. You need to add the following data elements, including the title, which is the title of the document that you are using, the author, the date, which is the publication date, and the source. It could be a source link if you got your reference online, or if it's a physical copy, you can add it here. You will be guided by the description so you know exactly what information you need to add. Now let's go and discuss about the good practices. So you will extract information about the good practices from your reference. You need to add a title of your good practice or practices, the geographical location, or where was the good practice conducted, the actors and stakeholders, who are the financial partners, who are the implementing partners. You need to add the target beneficiaries. They may be direct or indirect. And if you have information on how many and their gender, you can also add those details. Next is context or the implementation of the practice. This should provide the context and justification for the good practice. So you need to answer these questions for you to be guided about the context or the implementation practice. Like, what was the initial situation before the good practice was done or was implemented, and what was the problem, how was it addressed, and how did the problem impact the target beneficiaries. Then you need to write your objective. Next is the method or methods. How was the good practice or how are the good practices conducted? What, what were the main activities? Who were the key implementers and collaborators? Then you need to add the results of the practice. What are the outputs and the outcomes? And what are the results? And this is the part where you can add the lessons learned or the impact of the good practices. What worked really well? What facilitated this? How were the results evaluated? And then another important element are the success factors. What are the conditions needed for the practice to be successful? It could be institutional, economic, social, environmental. Add as much details as you can. What were the challenges? And how can the good practice be sustainable? To what extent the practice is sustainable institutionally, socially, economically, environmentally? Then, replicability and upscaling. If it has been done somewhere else, or how it can be upscaled, you need to add information here. Next is testimony. If there are stakeholders who can give their feedback, how it benefited them, it will be good. And then related resources, list of references about the practice, and the contact person. I also added a summary for the good practices. Here are the 5 guide questions that will let you construct that summary. First, you need to describe the current situation. What was the situation before the good practices was implemented? What was the problem? What are the good practices? What came out of the good practices? What are the results? And describe the final situation. How did it end up after the good practices were implemented? Now that I've introduced to you this tool, let me show you how to use it in action. Let me show you examples of how we can apply this information capture template to documents that we always use, like a case study, project report, and workshop output.